Good evening, friends. I would like to encourage you to come on in and find a seat. Settle in. I trust you had a wonderful afternoon. Those of you who were here, can I get a round of applause for our workshop presenters, please? I am so grateful. Not all of you are in the room, but many to you all. I know we all are. And that seems like it would be hard to top, but it won't be because I am just thrilled to introduce our guest speaker, our keynote speaker today. And I think you're all going to really enjoy her. She's an incredible leader in our church, the Most Reverend Bishop Melissa Skelton. Yay. So just a few words. I won't take long because you want to hear from her, not me. You're going to hear from me plenty tomorrow. Bishop Skelton is the former metropolitan of the ecclesiastical province of British Columbia and Yukon, and the first woman in the Anglican Church of Canada to hold the position of Archbishop. Woo! She previously served as Bishop of the Diocese of New Westminster in the Anglican Church of Canada. She's also served as provisional more recently in the Diocese of Olympia, where she helped really set that diocese up for success for our good friend Phil LaBelle, who's bishop there now. Many of you know him, and he is so grateful to you, I know. She also has roots much closer to us here in New England. She was rector of Trinity Episcopal Church in Castine, Maine. And before that, she was vice president for consumer products and community engagement at Tom's of Maine. You know, the toothpaste. She draws on her background of leadership, both inside and outside of the church, and all that she does. And in particular, as a primary creator for the College of Congregational Development, which is a tool being used across the church by dioceses, by congregations. She's become one of the leading voices in the church, in our church, in congregational growth, not just in terms of numbers, but in deep, meaningful spiritual and missional vitality. And so as we as a diocese are focusing again, deepening our focus on fostering diverse, inclusive, and sustainable congregations, I thought she would be the perfect person to frame those conversations for this year ahead. And I am delighted and thrilled and honored to welcome her to share her wisdom with us. Bishop, welcome, and thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Okie doke. Greetings, everyone. Greetings. So lovely to be here. Yes, I have done time in New England and loved it. I used to think of Maine as the geographical center of my heart, among other things. Okay, so for the next 45 or so minutes, we'll be looking at exploring congregational development. And we'll be doing that in a couple of ways, through a definition, a proposed definition for congregational development that is embedded in what's called the College for Congregational Development, modeled after the College for New Bishops, which I used to also run. And then we'll be looking at one model about the purpose of a parish church. So I think I've got something in here about who I am. So I am a Christian. Even after I'm a Christian. I'm a spouse, a mother. I'm married to a deacon. I'm a grandmother. My kids live in Bangkok. My son still works for the U.S. government in the embassy over there. I'm a newish block and letterpress printer, so there is life after doing this stuff. If you're interested, let me know. And I still teach. I teach at Vancouver School of Theology. I'm still in love with the Episcopal Church, and specifically with congregational life. I'm the founder of the College for Congregational Development, and the rest you've heard. I was rector at St. Paul's, Seattle, right near the Space Needle in Washington, while being the canon for congregational development in the Diocese of Olympia. So I've always, for the most part, had two jobs. I've never actually spent much time being full-time in the parish. So just to let you know that. So I just want to start with a definition. And throughout this, what I'm going to ask you after I get through this definition is as you listen to this proposed definition, what kind of goes off for you in terms of, oh my gosh, my congregation or my community of faith needs to work in this area. So stay attuned to that. Listen for that as we go through it. So you'll get to talk after that. So congregational development. Some people think, oh, it's for ailing congregations. Well, no. It's for assisting congregations of all sizes, all locations, and all conditions with clergy and laity, with frameworks and skills. We're going to be looking at frameworks. Skill development must go right along with that. Frameworks and skills for becoming healthier, more faithful, more effective, or the language I like to use now, more fruitful communities of faith. And then I'm going to say more about that. Healthier meaning they can figure out the problems that are in front of them or around them or within them and address them. For those of you who've put off going to the doctor, anybody done that? You know, where you have a symptom. I can no longer see out of my left eye, or my tendon in my left, this is true, in my left foot hurts. Health is addressing those things in this scheme. More faithful is, of course, more focused on what our purpose as the body of Christ is all about. More focused on that and not other things. More effective or fruitful would be when you go to meetings, you don't think, oh, I'll never get that hour of my life back. You actually have ways to have actions that are in touch come out of it, and if possible, the relationships nurtured thereby rather than run over. So it's about assisting all these congregations to become healthier, more faithful, more effective communities of faith that with God's help, it's always with God's help, we're not just doing this on our own, that can focus on and are faithful to their unique purpose as congregations. When I was in seminary, no one ever addressed the issue of what is the purpose of a local congregation. We talked about the mission of the church, which many of you could recite back to me right now, I'm pretty sure, out of the prayer book catechism. But never, like, where does a congregation fit into this? So that focus on and are faithful to their unique purposes, congregations, which are local expressions of the body of Christ, and which, with God's help, gather people, assist God in gathering people, deepen people's engagement with and expression of their baptismal identity and purpose, and send them into the world as witnesses to and agents of transformation, of the new creation that has already been given to us. That's the purpose. I thought, no one ever taught me this, but in seminary, I thought the purpose of a local congregation, or at least what I was supposed to be doing, was spinning plates. Do you know what I'm talking about? Staying busy, looking busy, keeping things going. This is a little bit different purpose. So congregational development is about focusing on and developing our capacity to do that. That's one. Two, and yes, you will get a link to this if you want it, just like the Anglican identity thing. It's in my Google Drive. They are both that, and they are connected and expressive of the best of their ecclesial tradition, ethos, and character. As I said in my workshops, it's like the human person. When you are the best parts of yourself, it gives you energy, and with God's help, it kind of attracts others. It's more magnetic to be authentic to who you are, in God than not. So for that reason, it's important to work on this area. Third, are self-renewing, again with God's help, and responsible to the challenges and opportunities before them. The roof falls in, the roof starts to leak. We don't just ignore. We figure out, how do we respond to that? The neighborhood changes. We figure out how to respond. We notice it. And rather than think of, oh, that's a bother, we do something about it. The landscape of our national life changes, and we figure out, how are we going to respond to this? So that's what I mean by self-renewing, developing the capacity to respond to challenges and opportunities before us. My Church of St. Paul, Seattle, we had a kind of non-denominational evangelical seminary move into our neighborhood in Seattle. And I thought, interesting. And then I saw its opportunity, because they're non-denominational. And we filled our pews with those students who then decided to affix to a denomination. That is our ecclesial tradition. So that's an opportunity. It's not just about problems, it's challenges. And I think that's one of your churches, is it not? Okay. Are sustainable, so another bullet point, I think this is 4, are sustainable or working toward greater sustainability in terms of things fitting together. Size of congregation with the building. Ministry in the neighborhood with who we are as people, and kind of who's in our place, actually, or how we see our identity and what we're called by God to do. Identity, vision, goals, leadership, resources, culture, size, property, relationship. When all these things fit together, it starts building energy. It starts building energy. It'd be like the difference between, or not, what does not build energy is a vision that we don't have a checkbook to write a check to, or don't have a plan to raise the money. So that things fitting together it's a really important part of congregational development and working towards the fit in any organization. And I think these are from your diocese as well. There's a thing called the internet where you can go capture pictures. It's so great. And I would encourage those who are still showing mostly congregational life with masks on to refresh that. Because I didn't, mask, I do wear a mask from time to time. I wanted to show you not with that. So some of the photos in your congregations didn't make the cut on that. And finally, a congregation that fosters a particular kind of culture. You could put in a lot of other words here. These are mine. Culture of transparency, where people aren't sitting around wondering, like, how much money do we have? What was that fund for? Do we get to choose any of this? Or how was that conflict handled? Or how are we actually feeling in this congregation about X, Y, Z? Transparency, collaboration. It's just more fun. It's a bigger aggravation, I know, to collaborate. It takes more time, but it's more fun. It's what the church is about. Listening. This comes out of our heritage that I think of as the monastic Benedictine heritage, where we listen to discern before acting, rather than act and then hear the complaints. Listening, trust, courage, openness, and flexibility, appropriate flexibility, in which the congregation and its leaders have a greater sense of choice. So why is choice important? Anybody? Why is choice important?
It's empowering them.
Yeah, it's empowering. We feel ownership. We feel like we're a part of. Now, not everything is up for choice, is it? But a lot of things are. A lot of things are where we feel like at least we've been heard in the process. So those are my little bullet points. Here's another way to think about it, and this is out of organization development. What is that thing? Yeah, oh, and look, it looks so beautiful on that screen. I stole this with permission, out of a book on organization development, and it's an iceberg. And we know from watching movies that icebergs are bigger where? Down below rather than up top. So every person, every group, every diocese, every congregation, every nation, probably throughout the globe, has an iceberg, meaning there are things that we can see up top, and there are things down below. And the things down below are actually quite large and very, very powerful. So if you see in this little diagram here, this is an organization from an organizational thing, job descriptions, functional areas. I mean, I worked at the company of Tom's of Maine. I worked at the company of Procter & Gamble in marketing, hair care products forever. I worked on the Pantene brand, if you can believe it. Yep. Sorry. I worked with Vidal Sassoon, actually. Yes, so there are things that are up there, functional areas, marketing, finance, hierarchical levels. Here's the person who's the head of the company. Here's the next level. Mission statements, goals, objectives, all really good things, values, the ways we operate, HR manual, personnel policies and practices, things you can put a hand on. You can see it in a room. I was looking at Marriott. They have a picture of the founder, but I didn't see a little mission statement on the wall. It's that kind of stuff. The picture of the founder is an important thing above the iceberg, isn't it? What's below are the following: power and influence. Who really has it? And it's not always the person with the big stripe. Patterns of individual and group interaction. Who talks and who doesn't? Who talks to whom? In a meeting, how many times does a woman speak? Does a man speak? Does a person of color speak? Or the same person speaking all the time? Group sentiments and norms that are not expressed. Trust issues, emotions, affective relationships, who likes whom and who don't like whom. Covert hopes and dreams, the things that I always wanted the parish to be. I've been wanting the parish to be this, but I'm not really able to speak about it, but I sure am able to block things that don't go in that direction. Assumptions, just assumptions about who's in, who's out. Dynamics, this would be the dynamics of change and stability, conflict, and culture. Somebody, some business person, I'm not going to name, said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. You've heard that, right? In other words, you can have all this stuff at the top, but unless you kind of gently deal with some of what's below the iceberg, change is really difficult to do. And of course, you're in a time of culture change in this diocese because you have a new bishop, new staff members. And so, it's this really interesting time happening in my diocese too. So another way of thinking about congregational development is it tenderly, gently, we hope, helps to bring some of what's under the waterline up a bit, awareness, and attempts to deal with it, all in service of what the mission of the organization is. Take a breath. Okay, so congregational development, a little something from organization development. Yes, my famous question marks. Yeah. So at your table, remember I warned you, think about which one has to do with your parish. Discuss with other people, what one area that I've touched on, one area, do you believe your congregation, your parish, we have lots of language for communities, or your worshiping community needs to work on to develop, to further develop. Talk at your table for like 10 minutes. Maybe not quite that long.
slides so we can talk about those things while we're
The iceberg. Take about 2 more minutes. Sorry to cut you short. 2 more minutes. Let's begin to come back together. Come back together. Let's reconvene. Reconvene as a whole group. I'm so sorry that we don't have time permitting. I would love to hear what's going on at all the tables, but the important thing is that you are talking about it. I don't need to do that. So we're going to just move along. I know the iceberg is very provocative. I mean, think about in the human person how much some of us have worked and how much money some of us have spent to try to bring what's below up to look at around awareness. Very provocative and says something that the rest of the definition doesn't say. But I want to move on and focus in on that first part of the definition that had to do with congregational purpose. But first, to say something, and then you'll get to talk again. Let's go that. First, it's a model, and I do need to say something about what a model is. You see the pair of glasses on this. So a model is just a schematic, often involves a drawing that tries to express certain things and their relationship with one another. A model is not the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The model does not have the same beauty and terror of real life. I mean, nothing could sum up what congregational life really is. Nothing. You can't make it up. You can't make up the things, the surprises and what you learn about people. You can't make up some of the weird stuff that happens. You just can't. And to think that this is the way, this is the place of transformation for us as Christians. This earthen, all these little earthen vessels, but vessels nonetheless are the place. So this is one model about the purpose of a parish church. So it's a lens through which we can look at something, notice certain things, appreciate certain things, and assess things. Based on this, we can identify, and by the we, I don't mean professionals, not clergy. We as communities can identify and take actions about strengthening. So no matter where you are, how big you are, how much money you got, what community you're in, there's always something to strengthen, just like in the human person. I'm going to skip that. Oh, did you want to go back to that? Who did I? Look. Whose congregation is that? Isn't that lovely? I just thought this is so adorable. And as I said in my workshop, Paul Tillich once said that the incarnation is the Anglican heresy. It's not a heresy, by the way. And this just shows it. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go to the model itself. So these cute little arrows and things. So the purpose, this is my proposal to you and to so many in the church these days, that the purpose of a parish church is to assist God in gathering people into this, I show it as a circle. It should be a lot funkier, into a community of faith where over time, we're hoping to assist God in the transformation of people into the depths of their baptismal identity and purpose. And from there, we send them back into the world to be salt, light, leaven, agents and witnesses of transformation to the context in which they live. They already live. And context, of course, can be neighborhood, village, city, region, diocese, nation, state, nation, globe. Context is very big and can be looked at in a lot of different ways. So people that we assist in gathering, they come from that context. They come with the questions and issues from the context, and they're going to be sent out there again. We hope to be Christians in the world in the way that this church understands it. Remember in the ordination process, we ask, will you, blah, 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 person to be ordained. in the Christian faith in the way this church understands it. So that's a critical part. So, and this happens over and over again. We don't just do this once. Sunday happens every Sunday, right? Meetings happen. It happens every Sunday. We have a demand system that's weekly. So we're assisting God in gathering, engaging in processes of transformation, not just liturgy, sending them into the context, gathering, regathering over and over again. All of this assumes that God is at work in it all. So for instance, in gathering, what are some of the things that have people show up at your place where they could have been doing another thing? Suddenly they find themselves in your church. What are some things that send people in? They've heard of music, yep. They've had a divorce. A child is sick. They married an Episcopalian and they're evangelical, or they're Roman Catholic. Or I had a couple come in and just say, I've had it with whatever their tradition was. Said it to me straight out like that. And I've got to find another way. So God is at work setting all this up. We assist. So that's the model. And of course, context. Look, those are your places. Each congregation has a unique context, a place and a time. Context is about place and time. We're in quite the context here in the U.S. Right now, in which it lives. How the congregation shows up, functions, varies in response to this. We learned this so totally when COVID happened, didn't we? You'd never seen so many Episcopalians move quickly to do a thing. I was shocked. I was in Canada and I thought, oh my gosh, look at this. They can move quickly. Because it's not our charism. It was not our charism in my ecclesiastical province. So context is so important to stay in touch with. So that's about context. I'm kind of going so quickly through this. Oh, look at my E. So this little framework, and I know that there was a workshop on invite, welcome, connect. This is just another way of saying that. And this is out of one of your own, Alice Mann. This is Alice Mann's 1983 book. You can't get it anymore. About incorporation of new members in the Episcopal Church. But this is true not just of new people, it's folks who are longer timers. They still need to be invited, greeted, or incorporated. Let me just say something about each of these. Inviting is anything that happens before anyone crosses either a virtual or a physical threshold. It's anything that happens. So it's stuff like your building, your signage, your website, get rid of the masks, your social media, your reputation in the community. Oh, that's the place that does fill in the blank. St. Paul, Seattle was, in the 80s, was the only congregation in the entire city that would host funerals of people who died from AIDS. And no one told me that until I got there as their rector, and I thought, oh my God, this is solid gold about your identity. So invitation can be about reputation, word of mouth. Yeah, advertising, public, getting something in the newspaper, it's all true. And of course, the most powerful thing is personal invitation, and we typically as a church are not so good at it because, of course, one of our charisms is spiritual modesty, is it not? For those who are in that workshop. Spiritual modesty, we don't like to claim a lot. So invite. What do we do there? Greet. An appropriate greeting for someone either returning or coming for the first time. Will I tell you the story? Yeah, I went to an Episcopal church in an unnamed city. Maybe you do this too, sorry to offend you, where in the middle of the liturgy, we were all standing for something, and then the rector said, okay, everybody but visitors sit down. Ouch. Ouch. I'm not sure if I obeyed or not. I don't think I did. And to my peril, because at coffee hour, not a single person talked to me. Yeah, there you go. I was invisible. So greeting has to do with, of course, greeting for liturgy, but all the things that happen in that first visit or the first visit back. An appropriate welcome in coffee hour, the ability to direct people in the right places, the bulletin itself, all these things that constitute a welcome and a greeting. We in the Episcopal Church, out of these four things, think we do this best. However, I would submit that we could do better on this. We could do better on this. Third, orienting. So this is that in-between thing where someone has been greeted and they're now figuring out ways to kind of better fasten on. I do believe God wants us, and we as human beings want to fasten on to community. So orienting to the congregation, to Episcopal identity, like what is this place I've showed up in, to the specific people in the congregation, to the leaders. One of the biggest, wonderful, most orienting things I ever did was the simplest thing you can imagine. Once a month, after the liturgy, we were in a growth phase of people who didn't know anything about our tradition. We had something called St. Paul's 101, up by the Mary statue. Yes, we had a Mary statue, where people would put candles, in the big container that had sand in it, and answer any question anybody had about the liturgy that had just occurred. I did no preparation. I or other leaders did no preparation. And people asked things like, what is the incense for? So I was in a high church congregation. What is that about? So you could give a technical, historical description of that, or you could give something more deeply spiritual. Why are the windows blue, green, and gold on this? Why did you choose those colors? I could give a technical reason for that, or I could talk about the creation and this congregation's commitment to the creation. So people don't know what to make of it. Newcomers, longer timers showed up. I had 10, 12, 15 people every time we did it. And it was such an easy thing to orient, incorporate. These are the things that you do to more deeply help people find a way in, things that maybe we were a little shy about, asking if someone's actually been baptized, asking if someone would like to be confirmed or reaffirmed, getting someone more deeply involved in a specific ministry, finding out if they'd like to read, though much would bar the way for them to do that right off the bat. Financial pledge. Now, these look like they're in an order, but they're not. I had non-denominational evangelicals come, kind of sign on to things because they felt safe in the liturgy, and who the next week came with me with a check for $6,000. Because they have a different way. I didn't say, no, that's incorporation. That comes later. So these don't, we have to use these schemas to just talk about it, but they overlap, they come out of order, they do things with each other, they influence each other. It's just paying attention to the fact of these functions. What are we doing? So that's gathering. All of it's to assist God in gathering God's people in the church. You're not going to get to discuss this, sadly. You're not going to get to discuss this either. So you can teach this little bit of the model and have the congregation assess itself, and then have the congregation talk about, okay, what are we going to do about it? Where are we strong? Where are we not? What are we going to do? So all of this stuff is about engaging folks. It's not just about, isn't it fun to have a model? I want to move along. There's the model again, transform baptismal identity and purpose. Okay, baptismal identity. How many of you have read the words in the front of the baptismal service? In the 1979 Book of Common Prayer, it says, the bond that God establishes in baptism is what? Say it louder. Indissoluble. In other words, baptism isn't just a thing that liturgists do, and isn't it fun? And then we have food, we have cake. The bond that God establishes in baptism is not able to be broken. I mean, just internalize that for a minute. Because that bond is about love, embrace, connection, dignity, worth. That's what happens in baptism. We think sometimes on account of the wonderful baptismal covenant, which is about doing, we sometimes forget identity. God has established, has adopted us as children, as God's children in baptism. So you can run, but you cannot hide. That's what baptism is about. My son used to often say, why did you baptize me? I thought, why are we always talking about it? So it's the bedrock of everything. Right along with that, of course, and with the 1979 prayer book, I have to give that prayer book the credit, of course, the baptismal covenant, which didn't exist before that prayer book. We learn about purpose, persevere against evil, proclaim the good news, seek and serve Christ, love neighbor as self, strive for justice and peace, and respect the dignity of every human being. And in some places, we've added another promise. I don't know if you've done that. The care of creation. There are a couple of versions of that. The Canadian prayer book actually reprinted it with it in it. Yep. So transformation. Transformation is a big word. It happens over time. It can be some of the stuff that happens, like worship. It can be classes. It can be, the stuff in the community, coffee hour, eating with people. And it can also be influenced by other things in congregational life. That's St. Mary's. That's Provincetown. Thought it was such a beautiful painting. Liturgical space. The effect of being around others who are actually mature Christians. I mean, there's nothing like it. The organizational life of a congregation. Do we ever talk about money? Are we transparent? How did we handle that conflict? And then do we have a life in which many voices are heard in the discernment process, or just a few? All that is transformative, potentially transformative. Okay, and of course, being involved in ministries, in the community, in the neighborhood, all transformative. So, talk for just 2 minutes. What is one element of your congregation's life that's contributed to your own transformation as a Christian? And to your deepening of your Christian faith and practice? Just turn to one other person and just say one thing. You have 2 minutes. One thing. Take about 1 more minute, sorry. Ah. All right, let's come back together. Sorry to cut you short. Darn it. Okay. So one time during Holy Week, we asked the whole congregation to send in, just to me, the most transforming moment specifically out of all of Holy Week and through the vigil and second Mass of Easter. What was the most energizing? It was amazing what I learned, what my little team learned about what really deepened people's connection to God in Christ. So finally, gather, transform, sending. Most of us are sent back into the lives we already have. I mean, that's the good news and the bad news, right? We are sent into home life, parents, as somebody struggling with taking care of an elderly parent, or as a parent ourselves, as a sibling, in the midst of family blessings and conflicts, whatever, into work life. Oh my gosh, into work life that is sometimes energizing, sometimes brutalizing for the human person, depending upon where you work and what you're doing, into civic and societal life, in choices about how we vote, where we show up, do we protest, do we not, what do we go to, how do we see the world, and in creation itself. Jane Goodall's, who I knew, Jane Goodall's funeral just recently, so much about creation. And some of us returned in our vocations to church life. So this is an often neglected part of this model. I find in the Episcopal Church, we don't pay attention to, or we don't ask the questions about what is the support, let's say, parents of young children need as they think about themselves as Christian parents, which for some, they find that even that terminology alarming because how it's been co-opted. Again, it's our tradition as we understand it. Anyway, what are ways, who do we have in our congregation? Are they mostly artists, healthcare workers, factory workers? What are they? Are they government employees? Oh my gosh, Washington, D.C., can you imagine? And how can we support them in being the Christian people as we understand it in their lives? So this is a really important piece. And of course, then there's the sending that churches collectively do in their neighborhoods by the choices they make about advocacy or feeding or welcoming or protest, all those things. So it's both, most of us do it as sort of stealth Christians in a lot of places in the world. And yet there is also the collective piece. So that's another thing to think about it. Okay, so we're not going to talk about this, so you can use this stuff. This is one model out of, I think we have 8 core models now. This is the first model that was created. So it's about congregational development, just to leave you with this thought, is about all congregations, not just a few. It's about equipping clergy and laity together with skills and frameworks. And in our churches, it's about, part of it is being true to this purpose we have at the local level, warts and gifts, to deepen people's both awareness of and their ability to practice, their awareness of baptismal identity, their ability to practice baptismal purpose. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll turn it back over to you.